Augustine 4th, 437. The war continues, and more battalions have come through La Fère, heading west by way of the ferries. According to my new contacts, the Remains and Baton military have been pushed back all the way to Starlo, whereas fighting occurs within 5 to 10 miles from the edge of the city. Scattered throughout Skenderite-occupied Ramay, there are cells of Ramayan resistance operatives who are gathering intel for the Ramayan forces, sabotaging foods, and doing swift hidden runs on the enemy positions. I've asked about my family, but no one has heard about them. Jonas Luke promised to ask our comrades back in Starlo, though, so my job as a spy and observer is to simply keep my eyes open and my ears poised to pick up any details. Whenever I drop off my bread, I always confirm how many loaves each barracks needs, so I know how much to bring the next day. The Skenderite soldiers on duty always tell me, not realizing the true nature of my questions. However, I'm always careful not to come off as too inquisitive. After all, I'm just a baker, and aside from loaf counts, why would I care about how many soldiers are in the city? On my deliveries, I never lingered in any one place for too long. I kept moving as I had bread to deliver. This was especially true for the command center. Nowadays, the Skenderites are too cautious and paranoid, and I don't want to gain their attention. I pass my reports, as well as other operatives' intelligence reports, inside small metal tubes that are baked inside special loaves of bread. The tubes are so small, and I always bake them into one side of the bread, and then store that side at the bottom of the baskets. That way, if someone tears off from the other end, they'll only find bread. Every few days, Remains drop off empty baskets with false bottoms in them. The false bottoms contain the empty metal tubes that I can use to pass on more intelligence. So far, the system has worked out perfectly. May the goddess watch over us and allow for the system to continue working. Long live Ramay. Long live the resistance. Zumez. Augustine 9th, 437. The Skenderites have been constructing walls that will surround La Fère. While the new stone walls will protect La Fère upon completion, they will also protect the Skenderites as well. And those walls aren't short-term or temporary ones either. Those walls are being built with stone and mortar. Craftsmen from Skendar have started moving in. And not just soldiers, but civilians and their families are coming too. Granted, there isn't a migration, but this is still a very dangerous sign. One of the old school buildings is being refitted to serve as a hospital. No one is being treated there yet. With all these development projects, it makes me wonder, are the Skenderites preparing for a long stay? Yes, this is a war, but this isn't Skendar. It's Ramay. This isn't their home, and yet I can swear I almost feel insubstantial fingers wrapping around my throat. I've not heard from any of my contacts for days, and the bread hiding my intel is starting to go stale. Just in case, I've stored my special bread in the secret room. Zumez. Augustine 11th, 437. My contacts finally dropped by. The Skenderite patrols have been more numerous, and once again Skenderites are changing their travel papers. Not only that, I overheard from one of the barracks at some point, there will be a systematic sweep of the city block by block. I didn't hear where they're going to start from, or how they're going to go about it, but I plan to share it in my reports. I anticipate lying low for a while. I still haven't found out about my family. I suppose it's a good thing that I've not heard any bad news yet. Also, the summer heat is so oppressive. Zumez. September 4th, 437. The walls have come a long way, and I can say that once they become complete, they will loom over the city. Late last month, perhaps a week ago, Lefebvre started getting an influx of injured soldiers from the west, and an army of nurses from the east came to care for them. General Valsendorf has apparently approved the refitting of several other large buildings to be transformed into hospitals. I have noted that the security around the hospital is almost as tight as the preparations around the command center. It's as if they're daring the resistance to attack them. While making my deliveries, I've noticed there are 3 soldier patrols making laps around the main hospital every 10 minutes. It has 3 entrances and 2 guards stationed at each one. Unfortunately, the hospital gets deliveries from another baker in town. One I don't think is connected with the resistance. The wounded soldiers who were brought to Lefebvre look relieved to be here. How far are the front lines away anyway? It's a troubling thought that our invaders feel safe in a foreign land. And when I have thoughts like that, I wonder if I'm the one being foolish. Given how deeply entrenched the Skenderites are in Romay, will we ever be free again? Have we ceased being a foreign land to the Skenderites? And we as occupied Romains just haven't realized it yet? These are grim and frustrating questions indeed. Zumez. September 19th, 437. More wounded have been brought to Lefebvre, and now all 3 hospitals are in full operation. There are fewer resistance attacks in Lefebvre, and whenever I meet other members, I hear the news from other places. Most of the resistance activities are near the front lines, in some of the villages and the smaller towns that lead up to Starlo. The countryside has been gutted in terms of population, and many non-combatants have fled into northeastern Romay. Some of them have even escaped into Baton as well. Reports are that the Skenderites have made large advancements into southern Baton, along the Shrivioli River, and what remains of the Sortigian forces are slowly being pushed back. They may even be surrounded at some point. My duties are to remain the same. Watch the Skenderites, report troop movements, and stay out of direct and obvious notice. Oh yes, and the most important duty of all, keep my people fed. I hope my family is all right. To be honest, I hope they've fled Romay, for I fear what it will look like when this war is over. We're losing. Goddess help us. We're losing. Zumez. October 9th, 437. I've heard around town, both in whispered Skenderite voices and in the gloom-filled small talk from my fellow countrymen and countrywomen, that Skenderite forces are a mile away from Starlo. I've not seen any of my fellow resistance members since the 19th of September. Nevertheless, I've still collected information, documented troop activity, and tallied supply reserve figures. I've seen Romanians about, and they often appear to be overly nice to the passing Skenderite patrols. I understand how they feel, and I see it confirmed in their eyes. They want this nightmare to be over one way or another. I can't bring myself to placate them, though. Yes, I'm a professional, because I have to be, both for the resistance and to not be stabbed. I don't want to surrender myself as a Romanian, like the others I've seen. At this point, though, what choice does the Queen have? If they're that close to Starlo, then most of Romay is in the control of Skendar. I've heard that Darvo and Matin are mostly Skenderite cities now, as most of the Romanians have been driven out to the smaller towns. Skendar is eating our nation and growing fatter. Will I be forced to leave Lefebvre one day? Zumez. October 15th, 437. Starlo is under siege. It seems that Skendor is trying to lock in taking Starlo and the palace before winter sets in. Jonas Luke came to me last night and told me 90% of Lefaire's resistance is being called to help in the fight in Starlo. Baton is pulled out of Ramay completely, and we're on our own. Borders are being closed too. I'm being left behind to keep an eye on Lefaire, but I also think my friend Jonas Luke is doing me a favor. There was a deep sadness in his eyes, and his goodbye hug was long and tight. Though he didn't say it verbally, I had a strong feeling that this would be the last time I ever saw him. After he left, my home seemed to foretell a terribly cold winter. I shivered in my home, and not due to any actual temperature change. I wonder, Gwenda, what would you have done? Would you have demanded to go to Starlo? Maybe Jonas Luke left me behind, so someone could tell the story one day. Tell the story about how the Ramayans fought to the bitter end. Can you forgive me, Gwenda? Can you forgive me for being a coward, and for being grateful for being left behind? Zumez. Octobrine 25th, 437. The Queen has fled Starlo, and the remainder of the Ramayan forces are retreating to the port city of Yord. It will be the last defense the Ramayans can muster. As far as I know, the resistance is still fighting in the capital. At least that's what I overheard. Fight on, my brothers and sisters. Never surrender. Long live Ramay! Long live the resistance! Zumez. Novembrine 5th, 437. I've heard that 10 battalions of Skendorite soldiers have set upon Yord. It won't be long now. I've not heard from or seen any other resistance fighter, and from the general demeanor of the Skendorites in town, things are not going well for my beloved country. Not well at all. Ramay has lost our part in this war. What am I to do now? Zumez. Novembrine 15th, 437. Someone from the resistance finally came in today. His name was Bariso Shivan, and he was originally from a small village northeast of Starlo. He told me the news. There was a final stand of the resistance where most of the resistance fighters were cornered into a building and killed to the last person. It was confirmed that Jonas Luke was with the others until the very end. I remember feeling so overwhelmed with grief that I bawled right then and there. While I didn't know Jonas Luke as well as I would have liked, we were still bonded as brothers. However, it was deeper than that. Not only was my friend and comrade dead, as well as other loyal and fierce Ramayans, but I wept for the death of Ramay itself. Bariso cried with me at the kitchen table. He understood all too well what this defeat meant. Too bad Bariso had more news to share. The Queen has surrendered herself and what was left of Yord over to the Skendorites. We have indeed lost. I asked what Bariso intended to do, and he said he was aware of a dozen others who were left behind in smaller villages. He had to tell them the same news. I invited him to stay for the next several days, and he accepted. My heart hurts so much right now, but it seems I was spared a grisly fate. Why did you really leave me behind, Jonas Luke? Surely there were far more fantastic and honorable people who deserved to be alive. Why me? I'm nothing more than a baker. No matter what you think you saw in me, I'm just a baker. Zumez. Novembrine 18th, 437. Bariso left today, and I gave him a lot of bread for the road. It is the one luxury I can offer, and he accepted it with much gratitude. It started to snow today sometime after he left. The winter has come early this year. I watched the snowfall and the streets of the city become eerily quiet. The world, the land, and the sky lamented over the death of Reme. No matter what the Skenderites decide to do, I shall always be a proud Remayan in my soul. I will never surrender that part of myself. Long live Reme, for it will always reign in my heart. Zumez. Novembrine 25th, 437. Despite the start of winter and the light snowfall, Skendar has thrown everything against Sortig. It finally collapsed a few days ago. Sortig has been conquered. Baton stands alone against Skendar. However, the Baton armies have entrenched themselves firmly in the northeastern part of their country. Will they manage to hold off until winter fully caresses the land with its loving touch? If so, Baton will have one final winter to remain its own free country. Good luck, Baton, you bastards. Zumez. Decembrine 21st, 437. Happy winter solstice. That's what you're supposed to say, right? This year is surprisingly less delightful and happy than it was last year. During the last winter solstice, there was a small sliver of hope that Reme would fight back and reclaim its country. For Reme, this war is over, and I'm utterly lost. I've lost my family, my friends, my freedom, and my country. The only things I have left are my memories and my pride of being a Remayan. What good are those memories and pride now? Maybe I should slip away into the depths of the world's memory, like Reme. At least I could join my loved ones. Zumez. Decembrine 31st, 437. Last night, I almost did it. I had the rope tied to the rafters. The chair was poised, as was my determination. I was just about to step on top of that chair, a step that would lead me into infinite twilight. However, a powerful wave struck me and filled me with a sort of wild anxiousness. Every time I tried to lift my foot to prepare to hang myself, a violent noxiousness took hold of me. The same thoughts kept striking my mind over and over. No. Stop. What would Gwenda do? I fell to my knees and cried. I remember pushing the chair away from me and curling into a ball. I didn't have neighbors, so I cried out as loud as I could. Gwenda would have never allowed herself to be beaten into submission like this. She would have gone to fight. She would have died on her feet. What am I saying? She did go to fight. She did die on her feet. But I'm not her. I lack the immense strength she had in life. I'm weak. I'm just a baker. I wept loudly at the prospect that everything I had ever treasured had been torn away from me. I grieved over everything that I had lost. And yet, I was still a proud Remayan like my sister. I couldn't surrender my life, for there was still more story to tell. To my surprise, a squad of Skenderites broke into my home and filtered into my kitchen. They had heard the screaming, and they acted. Their demeanor changed as soon as they saw the rope, though. One of the Skenderite soldiers approached me, and he placed a hand on my shoulder. He said to me, "I'm sorry circumstances were unfavorable for you and your people, but don't give up." The soldier introduced himself as Hansi Fikostan. He was my age. Hansi and his squad stayed with me for a while, and I served them bread and warm drinks. One of the other soldiers took down my rope and confiscated it. They left me, and so too did my desire to end my life. To think I would be given such a message by a Skenderite. Don't give up. I remember looking about the kitchen that night. For even alone, I didn't feel alone. Was that you, Gwenda? Tonight I face the last night of this terrible year. Somehow I will make next year better. I will not surrender. I will live. Zumez. January 1st, 4:38. Happy New Year. Zumez.